thank everyone for coming. So my name is Vicky Meyer. I'm the General Manager for Workforce at CheckUP. This is our first Queensland Primary Healthcare Network Forum for the year. So we host 4 of these throughout the year for our members and our stakeholders. And the first one is always Workforce. And we have decided that at least once a year we're going to actually take it to our region so that we can talk to people locally and share the stories and the information and the updates on our programs and hear from people within the region. Decision to host here in the Sunshine Coast and with Country to Coast is because our team has been working quite closely with Gillian Ingram's team and with Michelle's team from Country to Coast, and what we're really looking at and exploring and having this discussion today, and we'll be having other discussions, is how can CheckUP and Country to Coast work more closely together moving forward to support the primary health sector, but also the businesses within the health industry. So before, I think I'll hand over just in the spirit of the time. Our first speaker is going to be Gillian from Country to Coast, who's just going to set the scene for us.
Thanks so much, Vicky. Welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to have you all here at Country to Coast this morning. My name is Gillian Ingram. I'm the Deputy Director for Education and Workforce, and I've recently joined the PHN here, so it's lovely to see you all. I would just like to begin by acknowledging and paying our respects to the Gubbi people, the traditional custodians on the land in which we're living here today. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water, community, and honour their cultures, and we extend our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. I'm just going to start off our session today, just to give you a brief overview. For those of you who are not familiar with PHNs, just to let you know who we are, what we do, focusing in on what we do with workforce, and having a look at our workforce priorities, and consider some next steps forward in our partnership with CheckUP. So here at Country to Coast, our vision is to support our region to live their healthiest lives, and our mission is to work with our community to deliver the leading primary health programs. We're an independent, non-profit organisation, and we deliver the primary health network programs. Through needs assessments of our community, we commission health services and coordinate care for our region. All primary care is funded by the Commonwealth, in contrast to acute care, which is funded by the state. So that's a big difference. We work very closely with public and private non-government organisations in the primary care sector and across the acute care sector to improve the health and wellbeing for Central Queensland, White Bay and Sunshine Coast communities. Our key focus for our organisation is working really collaboratively. Our aim is to build a world-class health care system for our region, and we really know that we can't do it alone. To achieve this goal, we work with diverse groups, sharing our knowledge and skills and working to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our primary care system, ensuring that it meets our local needs. We're also committed to the national outcomes, so we have 5 key aims: the improved quality of care for our population, enhanced patient experience of our care, sustainable care, improved provider experience, and advancing health equity. That's a key focus for us here at Country to Coast. Our pillars for delivery, we really are focusing this year on harnessing technology, and we will invest for our further outcomes and impact and build the capacity of our primary health system. And we're going to do that through regional leadership and collaboration and enhanced internal capabilities. So our strategic objectives fall into 7 key priorities for this year, and they'll be revised soon. But mental health, alcohol and other drugs, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health, population health, health workforce, digital health, and also aged care. And internally, we have some of our departments that are sort of assigned exactly to those key priorities to help move those forward over the coming years. So, as a non-profit organisation funded by the Commonwealth, we're really good at identifying the needs in our region. I think there's a lot of people in the room whose job it is to assess the needs of workforce, communities. That's one of our really key strengths. And when funding comes down from the Commonwealth, we're in a really strong place to commission services that are going to meet the needs for those communities. So we have people on the ground across our vast region, and we work really collaboratively with those stakeholders. And we also provide resources not just to GPs but to all areas of primary care. So this is a map of where our PHN covers. Just go to the next slide. So it covers about 160,000 square kilometres from the Sunshine Coast up to Rockhampton and all the way out to Emerald. That's about 1 million people. 68% of those live regionally or remotely, and 28% of those are living in the most disadvantaged quintile. Other supports that we offer are we have, like I said, we have primary healthcare coordinators, and they sort of work on a territory model, each assigned to certain regions all across our districts. And key supports that we might provide to, say for example, general practice, the support for accreditation and quality improvement activities that they need to do to maintain their accreditation, data integrity, such as managing and cleansing it, creating health pathways and referral templates, which is a key role in linking primary care into acute care. So if I have a certain condition, I can follow this pathway and link to the specialist in Rockhampton who's there at that time and place, and keeping all that detailed information up to date. NDIS item numbers and updates to do with funding to make sure our GPs are being funded for all the work that they're doing. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health and cultural awareness. Support in chronic disease management, clinical software, rolling out different platforms that maybe come down from the Commonwealth and need different practices, and teams need a lot of help in adopting those. We work with educational resources and also training, supporting immunisation programs, and also some work on the recall and reminder systems as well. These are just some small examples in how we support healthcare workforce. The PHN does many, many other things, but today's focus on workforce, so I'm just sort of keeping it to that. Commissioning of services. Sorry about that. So just to get back to commissioning of our services, it's one of our key roles, and how it usually rolls is there's large Commonwealth strategies that are set, so large amounts of money are set, and so we're often assigned fairly large funding grants, and we are huge amount of what we do is commissioning. So when we really know what's happening on the ground, we're able to really help direct where that money goes. And that's really one of the key strengths of primary healthcare networks across the region. Oh, fabulous. So,
Well done.
I'll just do that. Okay, great. So, as commissioning is one part, some of the national workforce priorities for PHNs across Australia are around access, so improving access to primary health services in response to local need through service planning and mapping exercises, and boosting workforce supply through practice incentive programs and workforce programs. And there's some very large national projects on ways that we are gathering all of that data, and so that is some of our key work as well. More about that. But capacity and capability. So increasing the capacity and capability of general practice and other service providers through supporting education, quality improvement, safety and efficiency of general practice and other primary providers, and also innovation. So boosting productivity through adopting new service delivery models such as advanced practice, digital health models, delivering more flexible and cost-effective services. So a couple of ways at local level that the challenges are sort of remain for us is to build real systemic support for advanced practice roles. A lot of that comes under nursing, and a lot more conversations now around paramedics as well in primary care. Embedding digital health models, building capable local health workforce, and working with local communities to invest in enabling community infrastructure, because a lot of our areas don't even have the infrastructure to deliver health workforce. So just a couple of examples that I'll pull out today, because I know we have quite a long agenda, but CCQ plays a key role in understanding our regional workforce status, and one of those programs is called General Practice Workforce Planning Prioritisation Program, and this is a statewide project It's in its fourth round of iteration now, so we're just closing out all the data for round 4, which your data team might be keen to see what we're going to be able to pull out from that. You've probably seen previous versions, but the whole purpose of that is greater visibility of GP training opportunities to support GP registrars to complete their training at a single region as they progress through the medical pathway. And we really want to see a well-distributed GP workforce to the regional areas throughout all of Queensland. So that right now we can tell you, just on a colour-coded, all our different regions where we predict challenges are going to arise. We will know who's got capacity for training, who has low capacity for training, who's accredited to train, and it's very comprehensive pools of sort of national levels of data, and then local validation, so going out to every GP practice and saying, hey, the data says this, do you agree with that? Can you actually space to train people? So that will all be pulled, I think, in July. We're supposed to have the final reports there. So that's a really interesting one, which I can see it might be great to share and collaborate with what that data is telling us in collaboration with CheckUP. And another really good workforce program that we're just embarking on at the moment is called Virtual Integrated Practice Program, VOPGP. So the aim is to support retention in rural, remote and underserved urban areas by incentivising general practice through federal funding. So we want to address critical GP workforce needs and sustainability challenges in rural, remote areas, the MM4 to 7s. And this is through a telehealth integration and periodic on-site GP support. So we're partnering with UQ as a part of a research project where we will have GPs, metro GPs, who will go out to an identified practice who will self-identify to be involved in the program. They'll embed in the community there. There's certain requirements stated for a week, and then for a certain period they're contracted to do a couple of days a week for them. So there's a bit more of that continuity of care and linking into the community. So we're aiming to recruit 6 practices by the end of the year for that, and it's seen some great results in other PHNs who are a little ahead of us on this program for the future. Something else that is pretty valuable that our team does is we know all the practices at risk, and we aim to do this to have proactive and early engagement of risk factors and forward planning for risk mitigation, because some small towns where it's a sole GP practitioner, if that person gets sick or resigns, that can take out healthcare delivery for a 200 square kilometre radius. So we assess our practices every month, and we focus on 5 domains: on their business operations, local demographics, their digital health, their workforce and their primary care initiatives. And we use a standardised risk weighting based on the domains of those factors and formulate a risk assessment and come up with a plan for those different areas. That's just an example of what our risk reports look like for March. That's not real data, but we are really tight on knowing who's in need, what are we doing, and if we need to take any further steps and escalate those further. So we think that's quite a positive thing in terms for our health outcomes for our community, and that's only possible through all of our people who are on the ground and know the practices intimately. And sometimes it cannot be like maybe it's not a GP problem, maybe the partner has a problem, so that's going to take the GP out of town. So that real local on the ground knowledge is a real strength that I see that the PHN has, which is a contribution to big, huge, large data sets that are pulled nationally. Well, that's just more on that risk assessment, but I'll skip that for the moment. A key other aspect that we are in support of our workforce is education, and one of our sort of flagship education programs is what we call clinical societies. Not unlike these type of events, we sort of hold them once a quarter, where it's targeted at anyone working in primary care and just on different purposes, actually really networking and connecting our communities. So we have better connections, especially in the regional areas. It's great people come to hear a certain clinical topic and then they realise, oh, there's all these different clinical specialists. I haven't met you, I haven't seen you. I'll refer you, oh, you're the physio specialising in this. So you really see fantastic connections there. So that's a good way that we're supporting workforce through education as well, which sort of comes under my portfolio. So where to next? I think it's really great. We're going to hear and learn more about what CheckUP does, and we're going to be workshopping a little further this afternoon to try and pull out a few key shared objectives. And I'm sure I can tell by just the conversations out in the room that would be a lot to gain from working together. Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you, Gillian. So I just want to give a bit of an overview of CheckUP, so those of you that may not be familiar, but also for those of you that aren't familiar with CheckUP, what we're actually doing in the workforce space. It is a relatively new area for CheckUP, and that we've been increasing over the last 5 years. Just to let you know as well, there's a number of CheckUP staff here today. I think you're going to hear from nearly every one of them. And also our marketing and comms team are at the back. And I'd also like to acknowledge Louise from Business Chambers Queensland is here. And Louise is going to do a presentation a bit later on. So thanks for that, Louise. So CheckUP, at the core of it, we are dedicated to better health within communities, supporting wellbeing and prosperity for those in those communities. We also believe that everyone should have access to the healthcare and the services that they need where they live. So we've been around for over 26 years. Some of you may know CheckUP, especially because of our delivery of the provision of outreach services in rural and remote and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities across Queensland. About in 2020, CheckUP, we really started to look at our workforce, our role in workforce for the health industry, and we've expanded that recently to community services as well. And that was really based on the premise that we know that in some communities there is not going to be the local workforce, there's not going to be the local GP or the allied health provider, but how do we start thinking locally about building those and growing the workforce and supporting people into a health career or a community service career. So what does our approach look like? We have a number of programs, a majority are funded by the Queensland government. We've been implementing these for a number of years. We have a role in looking at system oversight. So we have the Health Industry Skills Advisor program, and that is really a conduit between industry and government to give advice on what are the skills that we require for our workforce, not just now, but into the future. Is the vocational education and training system meeting needs? Is it aligning with university? Are we creating pathways and are we supporting people to be able to do the career journey from vet through the university and every touch point within their career? We support businesses, so you are going to hear from Carissa and Stuart today about the work that we're doing with small to medium businesses through our industry workforce advisor role, and really looking at how we, good example of looking at those practices at risk, Gillian, and some of the work that we're doing with practices one-on-one, we're actually working with them and probably identifying problems and assisting them even before they realise they're at risk. So we're able to give some of those case studies to you and how you can access that program. Again, we look at the workforce pipeline, as I was saying, and so we've got Kat Murray here today, one of our coordinators, and she runs a program which we call Health Gateway to Industry Schools. So that's actually connecting the schools with the employers and with industry, and it's really about trying to open up our doors. There isn't one thing that we know with health. We have probably been a bit slower in really opening up our doors to young people, supporting careers through vocational education and training, and thinking about alternative recruitment models. I think you've got about 105 schools that are a Health Gateway school across the state, and there's a number of them here up in the Sunshine Coast as well. So if we get time, Kat, I'll put you on the spot. And then we look at industry development. So one of our newest programs focusing on NDIS is the NDIS Business Connect program, and that's really looking at how do we work with those small providers to build a capacity and capability in the business, and how do we get them to recognise that the NDIS is a viable market for them to expand their business to or to offer their services. I'm really also focusing on those regional, rural and remote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community and those businesses. And Kylie's going to talk more about that. Yeah. So our goals really with the workforce program, if we had to put it to why are we doing all of this, we really want to gain those insights and understand the issues. We really want to be able to hear from everyone in the industry and all of those people, so I overused term, but in the ecosystem, educators, IPOs, employers. We want to understand what's happening, where are the gaps and what's needed. We want to identify solutions. So we want to be able to help, we want to be able to partner with people, and we want to be able to actually do those tangible pieces of work that actually make a difference and support the health industry overall. And we want to drive change. So we really want to start raising more awareness and more promotion about what's actually working within industry, what can we replicate, what's scalable, what can we recommend. Back to government of where investment needs to go. And part of this is really, you can tell me if this resonates because I just came up with this week. Why am I here? What am I doing? But no, I think it was really trying to explain what we're doing. We need to, as an industry, not just as a CheckUP, we really need to start being able to describe to people why this is important and what does it mean. Particularly, we need to have a story. We need to start thinking about what is a narrative that we can really get people to engage with. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of, there is a perception out there that health is fine, that health has a lot of money, health is supported by Queensland Health, and there's not really always a strong understanding of the primary healthcare sector, for example. There's not actually the understanding that you might have a hospital and health service in a region, and it might be your largest employer, but the majority of health delivery and the majority of health business is sitting outside of that. You can't see that, but it's really impressive. It's very, very clever, and it's being designed by our data consultants who are sitting there. But look, just to, another way that we're looking at helping people is really we've got to get some more data. We've got to take everything that's out there. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of reports about health, but I don't think they're really honing in on what the real story is, or is it something that, do you have access to that? Can you pick up a report? So one of the things that CheckUP is really doing on our workforce team is how do we get some of this more profiling information? So it's not just information that we can give back to the government, it's information that we can give back to industry, give to businesses to help inform that planning. So we did this profile, and look, we'll send out these slides, but the main takeaway from that is Sunshine Coast, your population is outpacing growth for the rest of Queensland. You have a higher median age within your demographic. You have higher rates of what we can see from the data, higher rates of chronic health conditions, persons with disability living in the area, and you have a lower median income, but that's not surprising if you look at sometimes you have to look at it and go, well, if you've got an aging population and you've got that, you've probably got more of a retiree population, that's not the problem. But one of the other things is that the students here, and what we can see from all of the training data and education data, is they're more likely to go and study in health and they're more likely to work in health. That's really clever as well. But it will send us out. But basically it is just showing health is growing. We know that. Health is one of the largest, it's almost the largest employer. When you're in the region, it's probably going to be within the top 3 of the largest employers, and it is continuing to grow. And we have huge growth coming. And look, I'm going to just, Jane, what's our 2026, 27? It's about 54,000 new jobs.
Looking forward, it's 14.6 just for healthcare and social services in this region. And that is greater than the state growth for healthcare and social services. So it's predicted to be 14.6% growth between now and 27.
So is
just
that
off the top of our head, that's why you come to CheckUP workforce team. She knows it all. So that's the issue as well. You've got that growth. Every other region has growth coming. The whole industry has this growth. And while we're still looking at that, we still have vacancies. We still haven't filled actually the positions that we needed to fill in order to deliver services. You still have those shortages. We have an aging workforce. We have a cliff coming. And the cliff that keeps getting postponed. Global financial crisis saved us because people postponed their retirement. COVID actually had a bit of an impact upon that too. there's been a few instances where we know that there's going to be a mass retirement happening in some of our key areas, and we don't have the replacement workforce coming through.
The other impact that COVID had is that the Sunshine Coast has been one of the biggest growth areas for interstate migration as a result of COVID. So you've had a huge influx of population here compared to, it's actually bigger than Brisbane and the Gold Coast. People want to come here for the lifestyle. So you've got a huge influx of population. So your services need to grow to match that influx already. So it's just going to get bigger.
Yeah. So, theme of today is supporting health small business. Nationally, small to medium businesses, they make up 2/3 of Australia's workforce, and healthcare is one of those the largest employers and businesses within that category. In June 2024, there were 4,009 recorded businesses in healthcare and social assistance in the Sunshine Coast, and you can see 3,901 of them were employed less than 20 employees. And 1 in 3 businesses in healthcare and social assistance, when we look at business cards, will be a general practice. Some things when we go into this conversation, when we talk about workforces, we talk a lot about the growth and this competition, you're competing with other industries, we know we've got these issues. What we're also really aware of is the issues that are being felt, and have been felt for a very long time in the regions, are starting to be felt in the urban areas as well. So there's starting to be that more competition, that there's more distribution of the workforce. We're looking at people are looking more about where do they get the workforce from and taking them from other areas. But also we know that there's other issues, and there is always going to be the competition with Queensland Health. That it really does make a factor into how people attract and retain their staff as well, whether they're private or they're public funded. The other thing is that it is estimated that about 70 to 80% of the current workforce will still be in health and community services within 5 years. But they will be working in different settings, they will be working and delivering differently, and they will need different skills or upskilling in order to do their roles. So that's just a bit of an overview and scene setting and why we do what we do. But now I get to hand over. Oh, I don't, I'm still talking. I just realised I put myself on this one too. to begin it. I'm going to hand over soon to the industry workforce advisors, Stuart and Melissa, just to give you an idea of the work and to give you some case studies of what they do. But I just want to really quickly go over what they are. So the role of the industry workforce advisors, we're funded by the Queensland Government. It's the we're in the 3rd year, and the program's funded till December this year. They work with the businesses, they provide one-on-one support. Help them to deliver workforce plans, and then help them to actually implement those workforce plans and connect them with funding and supports that can assist with that. So why is it important? I think all of those issues that we spoke about before, businesses, and it's always been long coming, businesses and health and community services really do have to start thinking about the business plan and the workforce planning and start thinking more strategically and looking at ways to adopt different approaches, but also how do we address those challenges that we have? How do we think differently about the future? And how do we promote ourselves as an employer of choice? Particularly for the smaller practices, how do we convince people straight out of uni that the experience that you can have in a rural remote area, a regional area, or a private practice? Really, really quickly, and the program's been going, just to the demand of it, the majority of people accessing that are micro businesses or the small businesses, so anything under 20 headcount. Private practice is our main client. And the challenges, and I don't need to drill into this, but when we ask people when they come into the program what are your challenges, we're pretty much going to be even across all of those. There's not really one that's more important than the other, and assistance required. And really that's what people are looking for. They're looking for that support. How do they implement this? Where are the subsidies? Where are the grants? How do you navigate the system? One of the things that we have been trying to, and I think we are improving more, and I think this is important for the context. There is a lot of money available through the Queensland government and through the federal government to support small businesses. But it's not accessed by health or community services as much as it should be. And I think that's just the mindset that you're a health provider. It's, so there is this link that Hauser, Stuart and Carissa are able to make, but we do need to start thinking about that, and that's part of that narrative as well, that it is small business. Health is one of the biggest small businesses. So I'm going to hand over now to Carissa McAllister. So Carissa is our First Nations Industry Workforce Advisor for Health and Community Services.
Hi everyone, I'm Carissa. I'm CheckUP's First Nations Workforce Advisor. So thank you for having me today, and it's an honour to be here with you. So I've just been asked to share some insights and a case study of some workforce planning that I have done recently for a First Nations health organisation. But also I just wanted to sort of start with my background and where I come from and why I do what I do. So I come from a paralegal and a business background, and then ended up in following my passion in health science and health promotion. But I'm a Wiradjuri woman from the Wellington Valley in New South Wales, and I am raising my own boys here on Gubbi Gubbi country. I love working with First Nations people and with First Nations people because of the connection to my own country, which I lost when I came up here, and the stories that I learned from my elders and my aunties and my family history, and why my family ended up being where they are today. But the other part I love about working with them is they have an innate strength within them. Okay, and I think we have a lot to learn from the things that they know and the way they look after their families and their concepts of building their communities. So one thing what I do when I do work with them is sort of pull that out, and then within that they can be empowered and find their own confidence, and you can connect them to all the different supports and solutions that you know from connecting throughout Queensland and, interagency relationships and connections that we have. So just specifically for your area, I pulled out some of the work that I've been doing in the last 6 months. And this is just some of the issues that I have found in this country to coast area. So we have a lack of understanding and awareness of the ARCHO model of care, which impacts the ARCHO's service coordination and then patient outcomes. So the business planning process and the strategic planning processes are a challenge. So that is sort of impacting people to move towards workforce planning because they think that isn't concrete or that needs to be updated and they need more support there. So that's inhibiting taking on the workforce planning. The other part that I've found is that human resource companies are inaccessible to the health businesses and organisations because they're too expensive, or they're giving a cookie cutter approach, or the other part that I found is it's just not relevant to the industry. So they're coming up with more problems with their templates or their vetting or their onboarding supports. So we really need industry-specific expertise and support in that area. We have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff who are really good at undertaking their roles, but it's a confidence maybe that is stopping them from up-leveling into their Aboriginal health worker Cert 3 or Cert 4 or into leadership. The blue and yellow cards are not accessible for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff, which is impacting workforce attraction. So they could bring more workers in, but just the barrier or the shame or the complexity of that process and breaking that down could be a lot easier. So obviously we don't want people working in these areas who aren't safe to work in those areas, but sometimes it's a misdemeanor from 20 years ago, all right? So, and there's a process where you can go through, but it's really hard. It can be shameful, and it's just something that the clinics or the organisations may not have the capacity for, or maybe personal capacity to actually do that. The how to implement aged care and NDIS services is extremely complex and unknown. So we've got the funding supports there, they're being uptaken, but how to actually implement that and roll that out to service need is a big barrier. And I've also been
I've also been sought after just from mainstream clinics because they want to attract Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander medical and health staff. And they also know they need to service the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander patients better. So it's just adding a different perspective of how they can bring up their workforce to, which is sort of an unknown, even from a cold community type centre. It's just really not hitting what Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, families and communities need to actually engage in that service. So the other part that I found when looking at the data, like Vicky went through all the data just for mainstream population, I had a quick look at the First Nations data just for your region up here. And interestingly, the closing the gap data and the population data was pretty similar to Queensland as a region, which was a bit funny for me because when I've gone into the other areas, there's usually a big decline in one area or there's another area that's really, really good, but yours was pretty even with the rest of the Queensland. There were still the inequities, obviously, to the mainstream population. But yeah, that was interesting. It also was the highest industry to employ First Nations people was the health and social and assistance industry, the highest occupation being for First Nations people, community and personal service workers. So the biggest part to us needing to build that capacity still and the attraction strategies that we need. We also have high employment in our constructions and our trades, which we don't want to pull from, and they have their own careers and salaries attached to those. But if you look at this region's data, you've actually got a lot of skilled and mature workers, First Nations workers in the retail and food and accommodation industries. So there's an opportunity there to attract and support those workers over into health and community service careers because it can be more rewarding. We can, increase their income and then we can build that retail food and accommodation again. And I think that's really important too from the gap and the critical need we have for First Nations health and social and emotional wellbeing and mental health. So it's as well and good that we're putting all this effort into the schools now, but the industry is sort of getting a little bit less confident about that because they need mature workers. So we've already got skilled, competent, mature workers in other fields that we can bring up and bring them over to health. Then that's, a great opportunity for us. The other part of data that I found was interesting, and I thought I could share just from our CheckUP workforce program data. Out of the people who uptake my services as the First Nations Workforce Advisor, 50% of them are your ACCHOs, so your Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisations, or your ACCOs, so your Aboriginal Community Controlled Organisations, it might be family violence or another part that, isn't running primary healthcare. And then 50% of them are actually businesses and employers, so within that micro to small area as well. So it's sort of spread evenly, which was interesting when I looked at it. So the main part that Vicky wanted me to share, more that I can't share now, was a workforce plan that I developed in a new way for a First Nations health organisation. Just how it was done differently and how I displayed it visually because it was done through a workshop style interaction with them over a day and a half, and it was about them determining for themselves how they were going to address their workforce, which was a big unknown for them, but they took on my help with the workforce planning activities that I am funded to do through the Queensland Government, but also in partnership with the Queensland Aboriginal and Islander Health Council, their workforce development manager. So we both went out on the ground and spent a day and a half workshopping this workforce plan with their staff. So we had the CEO, we had their corporate services managers, and then we had a manager from each of their departments. So that was a great experience for a service who has undergone many challenges and having to pivot. They've been around for decades. They're at MM6, so very remote. Really had to rely on telehealth to take over GPs being on the ground and just expanding in the areas that they've had to support their community that they may not even have the capacity to do so. So this was how I visually put together their workforce plan. They were really
I'll fix it in a minute.
And I would have done it differently if I had led it all and done it all myself. And it could have been quite more academic and reportative in nature or pinned to evidence. But this was about what they determined for themselves. It is how they decided they were going to take it on and stage it out in a way that they have the capacity to. But I also know, because we've started these processes, we did it over 3 years, I also know when they revisit it in 6 months or in a year's time, they will have matured and it can also progress, in the next 2 phases of the plan.
Keep going,
I think we're about to. Yeah, and one thing to note too, like a very capable service, but they don't have this ability to create presentations, to create slides. They have their model of care. They can communicate that to you very well. They're doing it all the time. But just me doing something like this really was them drawing a picture on a whiteboard, and I am not graphically graded by any means. I'm starting to learn how to use PowerPoint. But they love this because I put their ideas on paper. I did try and up-level parts of it or point out parts that, could have been a little bit more up-leveled, but I kept their language in it because it's their journey and they own it. And then they took this plan, they were in the middle of doing their strategic plan as well. This was then taken to their board meeting. So they had a new board and this was presented to them and it helped them communicate their vision of what needed to happen. So they've invited me now to work with the people doing their strategic plan to make sure they can then marry up that way. So I'm not going to read all this to you. It's sort of, if you're like me, you're sort of listening and reading in the background. So that's what that's for. Okay, the 4 key stages of workforce planning: get started, gather information, identify issues and find solutions, develop, implement, and monitor. Okay, and this is where I have the capacity to help assist with these stages, but also just breaking it down and saying it really isn't that hard. It's not this big thing that you can't reach. And the most important thing is you need to start in 2025. These are where I sort of look to of what success looks like. And this came from the work done that with CheckUP did in partnership with the Queensland Aboriginal and Islander Health Council in their workforce strategy. Okay, so successful work planning for First Nations health industry. We're looking for the future and current staff are provided the right education and training and professional development to undertake their roles. So me looking at that, how do I step back into 3 phases for a business? So the attraction, recruitment and retention. So it's staffing and occupation ratios meet community and organisational needs. Okay, so we're looking at the model of care and not looking at what you're doing and what you're funded for now. It's looking, if you were to service your whole community in that holistic Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander model of care, what do you need for your staff to be able to do that? And then how do you add in population growth and what's going on in your area around that? And then the third one is your workforce data planning, development and governance. So we need consistent data and metrics to inform the workforce planning and advocacy. So that's sort of going back to your clinic data, also stepping into regional and national data as well. But this is something that I have found that they're just in this spinning wheel and this isn't really being captured to then plan for the future. And then sustained governance and leadership models. So actually having more education around governance and up-leveling that, but also bringing people more into the leadership roles. But you need to support them to do that and they need the confidence to do it. So this is how we look at what success would look like. So here, this is just what basically their SWOT was, okay? So, but I sort of just tried to use more positive language as well, where we don't really say weaknesses and we don't really say threats. So, so this was just going through that and labelling that out for them when, sitting down in a day and a half and pulling out this information. Now, this is basically their plan. So I've de-identified it because just so I could share an example. So they talked about wanting to be an employer of choice, but to be an employer of choice is one thing, and it's said a lot these days, but to be an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employer of choice has different elements to it. And then they got really inspired by that and said, I want to be the Black employer of choice. And then when I sort of up-leveled them and I said, this is not your organisational problem, this is not your community problem, this is your region's problem. So then they started to look bigger and look at all the things around them of how they could pull resources in to support them for where they needed to go. So that's just like sort of how this part developed here. So this year, they were just going to invest in their current workforce and fill the functional gaps. And to them, that's extremely hard and was never going to happen without Quake's federal funding that they brought in for 3 streams of income just to start looking and upskilling their staff. But they're starting, okay? And then we just went through some dot points here of what else they're going to do this year. Phase 2, they were going to grow and develop their local workforce. So some examples in there, they were going to invest in their kids, rolling out more training programs and diversifying those. They needed more driving operations in the area. They need to expand home maintenance, alteration and guarding. They need more infrastructure to support growth, and they need to explore accommodation and incentive packages. Okay, and then the third phase, which is what they wanted to do, is lead the Black employer of choice using training, leadership, professional development and community opportunities. Okay, so they were going to have incentivized accommodation in place, extend engagement initiatives within the community and schools, which is something they wanted to do now, but they also understood they don't have the capacity to do it right now, so they were going to do it well in 28. Strong rolling training programs, which just keep going rather than doing one and then not going back. Monitor and review, so they acknowledged that they needed to constantly keep looking back at this and changing it. Explore the work for the dole and shared services, and undertake a regional approach and labour market. So this was me looking at doing that better, knowing that they don't have the capacity to really do it now, but they've put it in their future. So that's sort of how we pulled that together, and for them to see it like that, and the other people that I have shown and modelled other ones from, they actually went, well, that's not that hard, and we've started now. And then they can communicate this to their board and to their community when they need to get support. And then here I just did a visual of what phase 1 looks like. So this is just what it is, but they're just putting it in that visual presentation for them and making it theirs. That was a bit of a surprise. Okay, so then we're sort of looking at the action plan. So these were the priorities of what they wanted to do in that. So what it is, where the resource comes from and who's going to do it. So we actually started naming things there, so I've just taken out some of that information. So these are the priorities for the organisation. But then going back to how I said we had corporate services and their 4 main managers, this was specifically what they needed to do in 25. So I know that these managers now, because we brought them along with the journey with the workforce manager, with the training, and myself with the workforce planning, I'm still dealing with a couple of these managers now saying, Carissa, how do I fluff my action plan out now? So I'm helping them pull together more stuff, so for team workforce plans. So adding that extra support. And then system solutions that I had given them at that time, so, and the links. And then there was just, what do we do for regional workforce planning? And I think the difference for this one is just what the regional economic development priorities and opportunities are, knowing the region's current workforce composition, which I walked in there with data like I quickly did with you today, but I had a little bit more to share because I knew I was going there. And I didn't really share it at the start because I don't want to walk into a region or a service and try and tell them things about their area that they already know more of. But there were things that they didn't understand about their workforce in their region. And they were like, oh, but we're here and we're remote and we don't have the workers, but the industry surrounding them, they actually had a really high unemployment rate compared to the rest of Queensland. And they didn't know that. And then also, interestingly, they had a lot of retail workers as well, a strong retail workforce. And I was like, you can pull them over and support them into a career. And they were like, oh, wow. So I think they can just get very... looking in a tunnel. So when that objective person comes in, they can sort of look a bit bigger as well. So this was just a part of their plan so they can keep thinking about it when they move into that area. Okay, so that's me. So thank you. I hope that was okay and interesting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this one. Do you want me? I'll do it.
You can go.
No one else has to touch this.
Hi, Tim.
Thank you, Stuart.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Stuart Coward. I'm the Industry Workforce Advisor for Community Services. Now, I'll just recap briefly about the IWA program, but Vicky's asked me to give you some a practical example about how we implement some of our tools when working with employers here, not only in the Sunny Coast, but also all over Queensland. I'm very fortunate to have lived on the Sunshine Coast now for 45 years. And in that time, I've actually owned 4 of my own businesses here on the Sunshine Coast and been the executive officer of a national non-profit based here on the Sunshine Coast as well. So this is my homeland, and I truly understand some of the pressures and challenges that the local businesses are really experiencing here on the Sunny Coast. Just to recap on the IWA program, there are 11 IWAs that are employed by the state government through our independent voice CheckUP organisation. I'm one of 11 and I look after community services. So as I said, we're everything from cradle to grave, all the community service providers within that area. I used to say womb to tomb, but that used to upset people. So it's cradle to grave. And within those organisations, every single business is uniquely different. And I think that's our marketable point of difference. And my role as an IWA is to go in there with 2 specific purposes. The first one is to develop the workforce plans. And that is to sit down and look at where they are today with the current workforce, but where are they going to be in 12 months' time, 2 years' time, and what is that gap that we're actually identified with. Then it's my role to actually sit down and work with them on how we're going to bridge that gap and identify their unique differences within their organisation and become that employer of choice. The other role that I have is to advise organisations of resources that are available for them out there. There is so much. If I knew the amount of resources that were available when I had my businesses, I'd have a lot more here today. Sadly, these resources are kept as a very fine secret, and the role of the IWA is to actually expose some of these resources to these businesses in need. There's so much out there. There's templates, there's training, there's any amount of stuff up there, and one of my roles, or the other half of my roles, is to put you in contact with those resources and those templates, which is so vitally important. One of the reflections I was going to use today as a practical example is, and we'll hear a bit more from the Business Chamber of Queensland a bit later in Louise, is the Evolve program and the importance of the training that they offer in this 6-module self-paced online learning program. And one of those modules is called an EVP. And I'm not sure if you know what an EVP stands for, but it stands for an Employee Value Proposition. Why is this important? We talk about a point of difference. We talk about becoming that employer of choice. How is that practically possible through an employee value proposition? This was highlighted in Cairns when we did a roundtable up in Cairns, where we had community service organisations sitting around a table, and the majority of organisations were expressing their real concern about attracting and keeping staff. Any incentives, increasing annual salaries and that sort of thing just wasn't enough. And there was one organisation that went against the grain. They said, well, that's interesting because we've got them lining up the door. You know, we've actually dropped our salary down to award rate. How is this possible? And it's through their employee value proposition. It's the why. It's the why did I start this business in the first place? You know, people open up organisations because they have a driving passion and a driving reason for being. And that's why they think that what they're going to offer in a business is going to be a viable business, and it's going to be what the industry is missing. And so that passion, that employee value of choice is the reason why you started that business in the first place. And if you can refine that to a sentence or a statement, you can use that for every single part of your business, whether it be when you're advertising for positions in your organisation, because if you put your heart down and you tell people exactly why you're doing, and people can relate to that, I want to work for that organisation because I get it, right? I get what you're trying to do. I understand and I feel just as passionately about that as you do. So if you use that for recruitment, if you write that through your policies and your procedures and every single aspect of your business, that then becomes the culture of your organisation. So you don't actually have to try too hard to attract people to your organisation, because you being who you are and you're passionate about what you're doing, and people want to gravitate towards that. And I'm really, really excited about that as one of the best tools that I've used out there in businesses, because I think people get so caught up, especially in community services, where they're very passionate people. They started it for a very good cause, but they're so bloody busy working in their businesses, they forgot to step back and then work on their business. And that's part of what our role is as well. And if we can remind them about why they started that business in the first place, that gives them such a turnaround and such confidence to go to the next stage and start attracting those staff that they've found so difficult to find in the past. So that's the EVP. That's the one that one of the ones of many resources that I'm out there promoting. And as I said, it's been provided by the Business Chamber of Queensland, and I think Louise is going to phone me right now to come up and talk a little bit more about not only the EVP, but the suite of sources. But that's one of the programs that we do, and I'm the IRA of Community Services, and we're super keen to help out the Sunny Coasters and the Sunny Coast businesses. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart, and I'll leave Vicky to go because I don't want to break anything. But I've just got some notes to just share some information with you about the program. So as Stuart talked about, the employee value proposition (EVP), it is our most popular topic, and that is what communicates your unique value the business offers to your employees to be seen as that employer of choice. And the benefits of a well-prepared EVP include helping attract new talent, so making your recruitment easier, increasing your employee loyalty, so helping to retain high performers, and you're more likely to be recommended as a workplace, which supports your recruitment strategy. So as Stuart mentioned, if you need help curating your EVP, a great place to start would be the Workforce Evolve program. So thanks so much for the opportunity to provide you with a quick rundown of what that is all about today. Thanks, Vicky. So Business Chamber Queensland. Now you. That's okay. I'll keep talking about Business Chamber Queensland deliver the Workforce Evolve program in partnership with the Queensland Government. So it's a free program to build capability in business for attraction, recruitment and retention of diverse and inclusive workforces. And when it comes to the impact that the program is having on business, over 70% of those surveyed told us the program provided their business with the resources they needed to improve their workplace relations knowledge, enhance practices to appeal to a more diverse workforce, create or enhance retention and attraction strategies, and to attract a more diverse range of job seekers. So Workforce Evolve comprises, as Stuart said, of online learning modules, workshops, coaching and connections to referral partners. The program is convenient and flexible for business to access any time at your own pace, with the content delivered in bite-sized lessons. The online learning modules provide those practical tools and resources to help business, including templates, guidelines and checklists. And it does this through multi-channels, so business owners can access the program in a way that suits their needs. So that could be independent learning via the online modules and resources 24/7, group online workshops facilitated by our workforce coach, where you could do the content in a group workshop setting, one-on-one tailored business coaching, as well as that specialised support through our referral partner network. We can also deliver the program by cluster workshops. So clusters can be based on local government or local network, geographic or business. So we can head out to regional areas and deliver elements of the program in person through that workshop setting, which is tailored to suit that audience, whether it be the geography or the industry. So on completion of all the 6 learning modules, employers receive a Workforce Evolve verification badge and certificate in recognition of their commitment to that best practice attraction, retention and recruitment strategies. Our referral partner networks offer established and recognised employer and business programs, along with information and resources designed to support attraction, retention and participation of specific groups. So in addition to our referral partners, we also work really collaboratively across the spectrum of other programs, such as the Industry Workforce Advisors, Mentoring for Growth, Uni of Sunshine Coast Workforce Planning courses, and Wayne's here today if anyone wants more information, he can tell you all about those. and the Small Business Network, which includes the wellness and financial coaches, to name a few. So our approach is, if we don't offer something ourselves, we will know who to connect you through to get that tailored support your business needs. And as Vicky and Stuart have said already, there are so many programs and services available for business, often free, and the challenge can be the lack of awareness of what support is out there, but also where to find it. So that's something we like to use with our coaching to direct people to what they need. Great. So the topics include, these aren't the modules, the topics include, these are all the things covered. So as mentioned before, the learning modules, they can be done by yourself or through that group workshop. And people have said attending that weekly workshop has been really good to get that time in their diary. As Stuart said, people are so busy working, they don't often take that time out. So that's been a useful tool. And also that community of practice of learning. Often the businesses are very small businesses, so they like to think those group workshop settings where you hear, oh, that's what I'm doing, oh, I didn't think of that. And it's that really great coordination and communication, how they're working. We do have our next workshop series starting in late April. And these are the topics that are covered. So Workforce Evolve is a great introduction to HR, particularly for small businesses without a dedicated HR role. So 60% of the businesses completing the program so far have been less than 10, and 45% of those have been less than 5. So we really are finding that really useful for very small business. Thanks, Vicky. So it's just a little bit of a case study of one of our businesses we've been working with, which is a business on the Sunshine Coast. So the one-on-one coaching sessions that come with the program, all the businesses get 2 hours of tailored business coaching. And this is where we see the real impacts, like Jeannie. So she was trying to recruit, wasn't having any luck, had her job out for 15 months, worked with our workforce coach Isabella to rewrite that. And she's actually gone from strength to strength. When she started, she had 13 people. She's now up to 30. And she's just put on an operations manager because she can't keep up with the number of customers, which is fantastic. So just on that coaching, our most popular coaching topics include things like reviewing job ads to optimise messaging and content. So that's a great example with Jeannie there. So for the job ad to reach the widest possible segment of job seekers, they might just require that subtle shift in wording, clarification on role requirements, and letting that business's EVP shine through and take that job ad from good to great. And just can't reiterate enough, as Stuart said, about the EVP. Reviewing the business's career page or providing suggestions for creating a careers page. So that was one of the suggestions Isabella had for Jeannie, not only to help her with her recruitment now, but in the future. So as Stuart said, similar to that other business, you've already got a pool of people. So then when she needed to go back out and hire more people, she didn't need to re-advertise. She went to her careers page and pulled those people through. And those people are already aware of what she's offering because she's made her EVP quite strong on her website. Reviewing the EVP or providing tips for incorporating the EVP into other business documents like the business plan. Creating or refining an effective onboarding process to support retention. So this is really important, like you get the person, but then how are you going to keep them? So that first 6 months with a new hire is critical for long-term retention, but it can be hard for business owners to coordinate when they wear so many hats. So preparing themselves and their team with an onboarding process helps to provide that structure and make sure that new hire is set up for success. And also understanding the basics when employing staff for the first time. So I mentioned we work with a lot of quite small businesses. So people have often started a business because they're really passionate about their goods or service, but they might not actually know anything about that HR side and that recruiting side. So when your team grows, it can happen really quickly, and having a good understanding of those employment obligations can be complex and confusing. So understanding those basics and where to get that specialised support allows employers to navigate that relationship with confidence and foster a great place to work. So I would, maybe one more. if we're lucky. Yeah. So I would encourage you to register for Workforce Evolve, which you can do by scanning this QR code. I'd also like to give a shout out to Ray, who is here with us today from Business Chamber of Queensland. Ray is in our membership team and is available to chat after the presentations with anyone interested about our membership options. Ray and I can also provide more information to you about EcoBiz, which is another completely free sustainability program. So EcoBiz also delivered in partnership with the Queensland Government to help business audit their resource use, manage their carbon emissions and save on costs while reducing wastewater and energy consumption. So that program is available to any Queensland business with less than 200 full-time employees, and that involves you submitting your energy, waste and water bills, then having a session with an EcoBiz coach who will come out and provide a report on changes you can implement in your business to reduce both your costs and also your use. And I'd just like to say, really excited our EcoBiz team is down in Melbourne today. They're finalists in the Banksia Awards, which is a national sustainability award program, so fingers crossed, because that program has been in the market. The Chamber has been providing it for over 10 years, but it's been in the market for nearly 20 years, so a really fantastic program. So thanks again for having me today. If anyone would like any further information, come and chat to me about the program, please do so after the presentation. Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you. Yeah. I was going to say, I know we've had a lot of information to thrown at people and it's been a lot of chat. So before we go on to the next session, did anyone have any questions, any comments? Or are we happy to keep going and do that at the end? And just while I'm thinking about it and looking at it, so Joanne Proctor, we've been talking a lot about the supports available through the Industry Workforce Advisor Program, what's out there with government, and Jo, you are here from you changed your name.
Yeah, so I'm not going to give you the whole department name, but so it's the Queensland Government Business Concierge Service. So if you Google it now, you can actually find us on Business Queensland website. But pretty much everything that everyone's talked about. So Cass is here as well from Department of Trade, Employment Training, and that department actually funds a lot of the Workforce Advisor, Skills Advisor, Gateway Industry Skills programs. But our role is that small business concierge service. So I can spell concierge now. I can't spell entrepreneur yet. One day. But another big factor, like you've heard about, working on your business. Don't be insulted by this, but I sort of look at the health sector a bit like trades. Like you're awesome at your profession, but you may not necessarily think about the business side of what you do as much. So that's the kind of concept that, it's really about how can you work on your business to make it sustainable, profitable, and another big thing at the moment this whole year has again highlighted the fact that you need to have contingencies and things in play to obviously stay off weather events, cyber attacks, shutdowns, all these sort of things that so many businesses. So we've probably had to work with like Far North Queensland, South East Queensland, Western Queensland, South Burnett, all in the last 3 months, and basically the biggest issue that we found dealing with the small businesses that contact us is that literally after 2 or 3 days, they are nearly at the point of shutdown and closure. So having contingencies in place and planning for risk is just something like paramount now. Like it's one thing after another all the time. So again, if you're connected with Wayne, Stuart, Deb, Carissa, Cass, anyone like that, as long as you're connected to someone, the Business Chamber of Queensland, you'll be then connected with everyone else. Like we all work really closely together, but essentially that's all we do as well. The other big part of what we do now as a department is our role is internal to government too. So it's about identifying barriers within the Queensland government and working on ways to not down some doors, which will be fun. But yeah, that's us. So, thanks, Vicky.
It's dry. It's a great impromptu. It's great. Anyone else? Right, I'll hand it over to Kylie. So Kylie is our workforce manager, and is also the project manager for the NDIS Business Connect.
I've tried to do slides with very little words when we get to those, so thank you.
It's not very good.
And I spent yesterday in an enclosed space with lots of flooring fumes at a school carnival, so who knows what also to say. So getting back to that. Strengthening the NDIS small business market funded, so slightly different. So we're funded through families, seniors, disability services and child safety. I have to get all those right because that changed recently too. And the program itself is funded as part of the Queensland Government's Disability Peak and Representatives program. So we're one of 4 organisations that are funded to provide support to providers in the NDIS space or the disability space, along with National Disability Services, Queensland Aboriginal and Islander Health Council and Supported Accommodation Providers Australia, the other 3. Across all of that program, I guess, the aim of the government's broader program is that to improve the quality of services and the safety of the service environment, to make sure that people with disabilities are able to access the services and supports they require, and particularly if they can do that within the community setting. So that aligns very nicely with CheckUP's approach. For us, that means, can people actually get the services they need where they live? The program aims to build business capacity and capability for both existing and new small businesses and sole traders in the space. So the definition of that seems to be pretty standard. So 20 or under is our sort of head count, but that doesn't mean that if somebody walks in the door and they've got 23 supplements, I'll say, sorry, I'm not going to help you, and vice versa. So we work really closely, particularly with National Disability Services, who then do the 21 and above, essentially. We've been asked to focus on First Nations businesses, core businesses, and those that are operating in regional, rural and remote areas. And the other one that I don't put on there, but is probably overarches all that, which is thin markets in the NDIS space. And if any of you have any engagement in the NDIS space, then that could be in any location. So on this Sunshine Coast area, or used to be, that allied health provision is a thin market pretty much anywhere in the state. So it gives us a wide scope and a lot of territory to cover, and it's myself, Jane, who's at the back, helps out, and so does Deb as part of her role as well as other work. So there's a few of us wandering around trying to do some work in this space. And as I said, the project's to identify and respond to challenges and opportunities, share information and hear what's going on in the sector and be able to support that voice to be heard. We are funded through until the middle of 2028, so we do have a nice little chunk of time to make some traction and get some runs on the board, if you like. You can go, see, that's it for words now, but you'll get the slides and you'll get a QR code and that'll take you to the website, which I also mentioned a bit. But then, did I end up? See, then I started to use pictures. That was easier. What's happening? So I thought I'd just talk about some of the things that we are doing and we can do. So one is business support, obviously, as I said, for both new and existing. So if they're an existing business that are struggling with certain aspects of operating as a business, in this case, then we can help understand what that challenge is. I'm not going to purport to have the answers to all of that, but what I do have is, friends like Joe now, business concierge. I'm going to have to spell that too. And Business Chamber Queensland and a whole range of supports that do exist out there that we can connect people to. But sometimes it's actually just having a conversation, similar to what our ILAs do, which is to help them identify what are the challenges and the pain points that they're dealing with. If they're a new business, then often they go, we've got this idea, but we really don't know where to start. Or so what do we need to do to actually set up a business so we can help them with that or point them in the direction of resources to help with that. Or it might be, in some cases, it's like I've operated a business in a different market for a long time, but how do I now get into the NDIS market? How do I connect with customers? That's a big one. Like I've got a great idea, I've got a service, I can see its demand, but now how do I get clients and how do I connect with them? And probably the really big one in this space, which is sort of connected to that, is what is this thing called the NDIS and how do I navigate and understand that? And that changes on a daily basis sometimes. So I remember years ago at an event with someone from the NDIA standing up and saying, we don't print materials because by the time we get back to the office it would have changed. So it doesn't quite happen with the speed of that these days, but in the early days it did. But yeah, it is a constantly changing and evolving space, particularly as we start to move into the territory of having a lot of reforms come through. You can go to my next pretty picture now, Vicky, if it works. Networks. So what we hear through talking to people in this space is that peer support's really important, particularly for those sole traders, small businesses or independent support workers who are often out by themselves. And just talking, being able to talk to somebody else that's going through the same things that they are. Lots of existing networks in the space, particularly in the disability space, have been around for a while and have been created through organisations that probably don't fit in the category that we're looking at. So they tend to be those larger organisations, more traditional established disability providers. And so often those small businesses that may or may not be doing what we think of as traditional disability work don't necessarily feel like they meet their needs or they're for them. So how do we support networks that they feel comfortable in and can engage in, whether that's creating our own or supporting ones that exist. So there's a really successful one that's been operating for a number of years up in Rockhampton, which was exactly that, a group of 3 or 4 providers going, we don't really fit into the larger interagency sort of style network. Can we just get together and have a chat over coffee? And they did. That's how they started and they've grown. So we're looking at helping those networks continue, because sometimes that coordination piece is what leads to networks like that falling over because everyone's busy with their business. So how can we support those that exist? How can we help create new ones if there's a need or an interest in them? And at the start of this week, we launched our online statewide virtual network for small businesses and sole traders, which is evolving, so as we speak. But it was really just to start to bring people together to say, what do you need and what would be useful and how can we create that online space? And already people are going, yeah, it's even just somewhere, an online space where people can go and, post a question and get other people to help answer it. So we're doing lots of work in that space. And I've probably skipped over at the start, but I think when we talk about NDIS market and the organisations we're working with, we absolutely will work with those that we think of when you think about disability support organisations, so those that are providing community access supports or personal care work. But it's also those businesses that are providing lots of those other services. So if they're coming in and helping provide home maintenance and home modification or lawn care or meal preparation, those sort of businesses are also within our scope. And in terms of the connections here, the largest, and I was going to say, don't know if we've even talked to you about this sort of data, Jeff and Stuart, that, but if we talk about the number of small sole traders and small businesses are the largest number of providers in the NDIS market now, and lots of them would fall into the allied health space, I think, if we looked at that number, or support coordination and the best support coordination, people tend to be allied health professionals. So you can go to the next one, just in the interest of time. So resources, one of the things that we will do, like everyone said here, the importance of connecting people to resources. I just, rather than try and get a website to work today, we launched a website at the start of the year as well. So that's where you can go, and the QR code at the first slide will take you there. That's where you can go to find out more about the program. People can submit a contact form and we'll reach out and say hello and see how we can help. Jane's usually your first point of contact. She monitors those for us. Where you'll find information on resources, events, and just information as it's coming out with, as I said, the change all the time in what's going on in the NDIS policy space, and changes to how things are operating, we are going to try to maintain an ongoing dialogue around that on the website as well. And then we have the rebranded, I guess, what used to be our Workforce e-News, which is now CheckUP Connect e-News. So it's across the Workforce and Industry Development, which is every 2 months, Deb. And so you will be able to catch up on all of our programs. Is that, if you're not signed up on that?
Next week.
Absolutely. And through both of those mechanisms, if you have events or information that would be useful to connect people to, then let us know, because we can absolutely promote that and share it on the website and in the newsletter for you so that we can reach. Is there one more?
Oh, so proud of yourself.
It's because I marvel at people who do that. Anyway, I think one of the really important pieces of this project, and I guess a great opportunity for us, is to be able to provide that collective voice up to government in terms of when decisions are being made and changes have been decided. So if I'm a small trader sitting on the Sunshine Coast, then my voice is rather small if you compare it to some of the really large national disability organisations. And so it's a little bit more difficult for that voice to be heard and to be valued, I guess. So if I'm, as I said, one person that has 4 or 5 clients going, hey, this is a problem for me, then they go, yeah, okay, that's not it. As opposed to an organisation with several thousand staff servicing a whole range, several thousand clients, and I don't have as much voice. If I'm one of several thousand small businesses and sole traders operating in the Queensland market, and we're collectively saying the same thing, then that gives us a little bit of buying power, if you like, in terms of attention and value. Not value, because the value is in the individual voice, obviously, but it gets us in the door, if you like, and gets us a seat at the table to have that, be able to share our information and our challenges. So that's really important, which is why we spend a lot of time out chatting to people, talking. I'm sure Vicky thinks we're just out having coffee, chatting away, but it is for a purpose. So we're trying to gather the information and use it in a way that is useful and purposeful and create some change. I think that's all. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Shall I think 5 minutes? Hello, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Debbie, and I'm one of the Health, Industry Skills and Jobs Advisors, funded through the Department of Trade, Employment and Training. And hello, Cassie. I'll come and say hello to you a bit later, our funding body. It's really great to be here today. We're talking about workforce and the importance of the workforce and having great plans and strategic vision. But one of the things that you do need is a skilled workforce. And this is where our role comes into play. There's lots of exciting things that are happening in the vet space this year. And hopefully they will not affect you. It'll be a streamlined sort of a process, which I'm going to tell you about. But one of the things I just wanted to say is that Vicky mentioned earlier on what our program is about. So one of the things that one of the main focuses I really like is that we are the conduit between business, industry and the government. So the government has a finite bucket of funds to spend in subsidising vocational education courses. And we're at an exciting place here on the Sunshine Coast because we have great expanse of training providers, whether that be private training providers, whether that be the Queensland funded through the TAFE through to university. And the University Accord, which is a national document, is also looking at how they all can be immersed together. And we're finding people are starting in vet, moving through to tertiary, but it's also coming back the other way as well. So it really is blended. I hope you're finding that too.
That's a beautiful theory, Jeff.
It's working. I've seen it. But with the final bucket of money, we need to make sure that from an industry and a business perspective, that they're actually subsidising the right courses. So we need to make sure that the skill shortages that you're seeing and the growth in your business that you're seeing is actually mirrored with the vocational education training courses opportunities that are available. And looking at pipeline. We've got Kat here from the Gateway Skills. The gateway and the pipeline of our young people and looking at starting and raising aspirations to get into the health sector. And that's going to be changing with some of the job ready funding, which is going to be looking at tasters in schools as well. So looking at how to raise that through great taste testers, through the gateway programs, to look at getting people started, but also continuing through the various pathways within the health sector.
That slide just wants to be seen, isn't it? Keep going down.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're talking about the skills that are required. So skills in technology. Do we need more skills in technology? So what are the I just want to mention about the different funding, how it's working. We talked about the pipeline starting in schools, but there is also the career start that's going to be starting, and that's for people to get their first qualification post-school, to get into a qualification that they're interested in. So I'm going to tell you in a second why this is all important, and then Career Boost. And I really like the Career Boost, and it has been underutilised. And this is where I think as a business, it may be of interest for you to tap into that. So that is one of the aspects that we look at. So why is knowing about those training and those subsidised courses important?
No, just keep going. Just
That's okay. So one of the areas that we do look at, and why I think vocational education is important, is that every year the government looks at these courses and looks at a priority list. So only those are listed on the priority list are subsidised. So this is where our great connection with Country to Coast is really valuable, because they have the connections out there to all the GPs, or the allied health, or the primary network. So we can get information back from you as a collective to ensure that when we have the opportunity to talk about the courses, that the right information is going through. So then when you're looking at building your workforce, you've got the staff to actually build it. So whether you're starting that off through traineeships, apprenticeships, moving forward, or whether you're using the higher level skills funding to actually boost existing members of your team to build and grow with your organisation. So it's start all the way through, and then it may even look at the tertiary side of things with the university. So that's pretty exciting. So that's one of the things that we do. And also through this vocational education skills and priorities is what are the funding is out there to help you trial and pilot programs. At the moment, we've got the local skills solution funding, which is looking at where are the shortages, where are the gaps, and what can we do, just not by yourself, but through partnerships. The government's really into partnerships when we're looking at education and training. So what partnerships can you bring together to look at the funding and trial different pilots? So that's pretty exciting at the moment as well. Just so you know, there is 27 health qualifications in the vet sector, vocational education and training, that is on the priority list. So there is vast amounts. And I know that through one of our consultations, we put one of the qualifications on that subsidy list. So your voice does matter. The other thing that we do, I'm going to be very...
Something no doubt.
Oh no. I'm a rebel in my clothing today, not wearing the uniform, rebel with my technology, but I'm okay. One of the other things that I wanted to mention is that when you're looking at a vocational education course, it's recognised Australia-wide. So that means we don't look there and say, okay, well, as a provider, I think we need to do this and change the training package. It needs to go nationally. So as part of our role, we're part of those national reforms. And we're part of, working groups discussing the training packages. And a lot of the, and there's one at the moment, my colleague Michelle, who is also a health industry skills and jobs advisor, is at a national discussion today around the health services assistance training package. They're looking at reviewing that. And some of the training packages have not been looked at until last time in 2015. So if you think of how fast our sector, and we are the fastest growing sector, not only in Queensland but Australia-wide. If you look how fast it's evolving, we need to have those continual discussions. But they do take a while to get through the process of updating the training packages. And this again is where our connection with Country to Coast is going to be valuable, because we need people to be part of those discussions. When we look at training packages, lots of voice from Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, very high density, in small areas. Queensland, Northern Territory, Western Australia, we're a whole different demographic. We're all spread out. So we need to make sure, and we try and encourage as many people as possible to be part of those discussions so we get our voice heard too. Because what is relevant for maybe Melbourne is not going to be relevant for Mackay or Mount Isa. So we really need to make sure that our voices are heard in those training packages. So now that you know about it, you may hear some more information coming through. The other way that we promote those is through the newsletter that Carly have listed up there that is coming out next week, and we'll promote a lot of those on there, and also with our great comms team who do things on our socials as well. So that's been, and when we look at training packages as well nationally, we do have a Jobs and Skills Council who looks after that, and they look after health and also social assistance. So any training packages within that, the review is done through those, and they're funded through the Department of Employment, Workplace Relations. Am I right? Yeah, good stuff in the back. Thank you. I haven't got my right glasses on. And Human Ability is who they are, and they've got a roadmap to look at addressing challenges. I was going to tell you about some of the training packages that are listed, and I can't remember them because I just had them on the slide, but I think they were health and social assistance, pathology, audiology, and optical skills from memory are being looked at. Is that right?
Optical dispensing.
Yeah. Yep. How close was that? Being reviewed at the moment. A lot of those are nearly at finalisation, so they're going to be rolled out, those new packages, fairly soon. What is on the radar for this year, if anyone is interested, sterilisation. Certificate 3, Certificate 4. So if anyone's interested in sterilisation and you require that in your occupation, or you know someone who does, please let us know, because we'll be looking at doing that, which is pretty exciting. One of the other slides, and this was the impact slide that I wanted to share with you.
We'll make sure it's there for when it's
Thank you. Was the completions. One of the challenges that we have as industry skills and jobs advisor is that we're getting people inspired to start in the health area. They're starting their courses, whether it be at school or whether they're just post-school. It's great. The enrolments are astronomical. The completions are way less than half. So we need to look at collectively, and you guys will have a great input into that as well, is why that is. Why aren't people who are starting in that area continuing on? So are they in the right course? Is it career counselling? Do they realise that, they're starting off in one health area, but it's so broad they can move into another area, but they're just in that silo format and they don't realise. So that's another big area that we're looking at. The other slide I had, and I had no notes on it because I was going to talk to it, was some of the things that we found was some of the other challenges that employers are telling us in relation to people once they finish a course. Language literacy, numeracy, and digital skills is a big thing out there that we're in discussions with lots of people with at the moment, particularly with the training packages review. One of the things is employability skills in the training packages as well. So, but the thing is, it's incorporated in there, but how do you inspire people who are actually doing the courses to actually know that they need to know it, because they already know it. But there's a gap there between what businesses are saying and what they think is important. And I can't remember the others, so Vicky's told me to wind up. So thank you very much. So please remember that skills is very important when we're looking at workforce. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
That was a long time there.
Well, I did great. I know it's really fun to make wrap up, and we do encourage people, if you do want to stay and do some networking, we have got lunch along so we can continue some of those discussions. And if you have any questions, please follow up with any of the team that have spoken today. And also just to let you know, we were joined by Gail from the outreach team and also Amber, who's outreach coordinator for this region. So please introduce yourself if you haven't met them yet. Do you want to do an impromptu?
Sure, why not?
Last one. Everyone's going to talk.
That's your specialty, isn't it?
This 1 minute we've been talking about the program, so.
I'm Kat from the Health Gateway, that's what we call it for short, it's too long for the whole thing, and we are also funded by DTEC as well. So what we do is we go into the schools and we talk to the kids about the career pathways into healthcare through vet pathways. So you don't know what you can't see, basically, so we really want the kids to know that it's a lot more than just doctors and nurses out there. So we go into the schools, we do student talks. We also link them in with industry, so that's super important, is to see what is out there firsthand in real life. So we can go and talk to a blue in the face, but if they don't see it, they can't imagine themselves doing it. So I've got a really great relationship up in this region with Budgeon Private Hospital. They are fantastic. We run a tour through there twice a year, so we get about 100 kids through each year so they can see what it's like to work in a hospital. But we know it's not just hospitals, there's lots and lots of other areas that they can work in as well. So any kind of linkages in this industry is what we would really love, because the kids need to get out there, they need to see what's there. I took some kids through an aged care facility in Brisbane and they're like, oh, we didn't realise we could be chefs in healthcare. Yes, you can. You can do all these other jobs. So it's not just your doctors and nurses, there's shortages everywhere across the whole industry. So that's what we're really trying to kind of stop. We realise, obviously, our industry reflects the general population as well. So there's lots of people retiring. We've got that ageing workforce as well. So we just have these kids sitting there ready to go. We work with over 100 schools, and in each school we've got about 20 kids ready to go and enter into the workforce, completing their certificate free, but they need placements to complete that as well. So that's a barrier there for them. We don't want to lose them because they've got that interest there. We just need to keep them, and then they can come in and kind of help flow with that pipeline. Yeah.
How long are the placements that they need? Like 4 weeks or 2 months? Or?
I think it was about 4 weeks. I need to.
Yeah.
100 hours. Yeah. So yeah.
Aged care. Anyway, I'm not sure if that helps, but for aged care it's 100 hours.
Yeah, 100 hours. Yeah. So we also do encourage them, you know, if they're having issues with the work placements, because sometimes that can be really difficult. Aged care is a really easy one for us to get into. A lot of them want to do hospital though, so that's really hard to get in there. But volunteering is another way. And so if you guys have volunteering opportunities there for the kids, that looks really great on their resume, just to help them kind of keep that interest. A lot of kids have put their hands up to volunteer at Budgeon Private Hospital. We've got one kid going through university. He's been volunteering there for 2 years now, since he kind of went on the Budgeon Private Hospital tour with us as well. So they are interested. We just need to keep them there. So thanks. Sorry about
We'll wrap up now, I think, and thanks to everyone. I just want to say thank you to our marketing and comms team for helping and organising all of this. And I'm sorry, I think they thought I was joking when we went, we'll just wing it. We don't have a script, our team doesn't use scripts. Thanks to Joy for the impromptu presentation. Yeah, and I really thank you to Gillian, and thank you to Matthew and Computer Class for hosting with us. I'm ignoring Roxy because she's trying to get me to take a photo. But anyway, thank you everyone for coming, and like I said, if you want to stick around and meet with some of the team and have some lunch with us, you're more than welcome.